Hi, and welcome back. We're going to be reading Tangerine by Edward Bloor today, and we're starting on page 112. Wednesday, September 20th. I got my uniform today. Joey brought his over after supper. We went out back through the patio doors. That was a mistake. It was a bad time outside. The muck fire was particularly strong. I could actually see it and feel it and smell it swirling over and into our yard, and mixed in with it I could hear a sound, a predator's sound. It was the sound of Arthur Bauer's Land Cruiser on the other side of the wall. It was the sound of Arthur and Eric accelerating, braking, and sliding through the mud on the perimeter road. I should have told Joey to come back inside, but I didn't. We laid our uniforms out on the picnic table, side by side, so we could compare them. Joey's uniform is brand new. It has light blue socks, white shorts, and a light blue jersey. The jersey has a white number 10 on the back and the word Seagulls written in cursive across the front. Pretty cool. My uniform has obviously known some previous owners. It has maroon socks and shorts and a gold jersey with a thin maroon stripe on each side. The jersey has a black number 5 on the back and a round black patch over the heart, hand sewn, that shows a ferocious-looking eagle with arrows in its talons. The smoke was starting to get to us, so we gathered up our stuff to go inside. I hadn't noticed that the predator's roar had stopped. Arthur and Eric had quit their mud running and driven around from the perimeter road to our driveway. I usually notice stuff like that, especially where Eric is concerned, but today I didn't. Just as Joey and I turned around from the table, Eric and Arthur entered the backyard through the gate. Arthur ignored us and headed toward the patio. Eric, carrying all of his football gear, swiped at Arthur with his helmet and said, "Hey, check it out. It's Mohawk Man's brother." Arthur stopped and stared at Joey. He answered on the cruel wavelength. "I didn't know Mohawk Man had a brother." "Yeah, you did, butthead. The shoes. He was trying to take Mohawk Man's shoes." The two of them started to laugh. Eric said, "It's the hair that fooled you. No family resemblance." Arthur picked up on the banter. No family resemblance. None at all. "I wonder if he got his money back for those shoes." "Yeah, hey, there was nothing wrong with those shoes. The kid had some money coming." Joey was clearly stunned by this exchange. He had no idea what they were talking about, but I did, and I felt sick with anger. Eric and Arthur continued on through the patio doors, passing through them into Mom's world, changing their ghoulish routine about Mike Costello into one about the National Honor Society or the student government or some other bull for Mom's ears. Joey turned to me with a pleading look. He said, "What are they talking about? Who's Mohawk Man?" "Forget about it. They're idiots." "No, tell me. You obviously know." Joey was right. I took a deep breath of the smoky air and explained, "Joey, they're making fun of your brother. They're making fun of Mike when his hair got burned off by the lightning. And they're making fun of you for trying to take his shoes off at the field." Joey thought for a minute. Then he whispered, "That's what I thought they were doing." He sat down on the picnic table bench. I should have punched them out for that. I should have tried, anyway. He looked at me. "That's what Mike would have done. Mike had guts. He stood up to people when he had to." Joey's voice dropped even lower. "He wasn't a coward like me." "Hey, you're not a coward. We saved people's lives at that sinkhole, right?" "That's different. This is personal. It's about me. They knew they could do that to me. They knew I wouldn't do anything back." "They're idiots, Joey, and they're just not worth it. You don't see me standing up to them, do you? I just let them be idiots." Joey stared at the wall. "I know a lot of those football guys are laughing at me because of what I did, because of the shoes, but I never in a million years thought they were laughing at Mike." "Hey, nobody who's worth thinking about is laughing at Mike, or you. Who are we talking about here? Eric? Eric's laughing at everybody. It's all a big joke to him. Arthur Bauer, he's a big zero, but now he's getting his chance, right? He's going to hold the football for Eric, but he's no Mike Costello. Nowhere near. He doesn't have the talent. He doesn't have the character. So what's he going to do? He's going to mock him. He's going to put him down. He'd never do it to Mike's face, so he's doing it this way. He's the coward, not you." Joey may or may not have been listening. I don't know. Tears were pouring down his face. He tried to talk through them. "I wanted to explain to Coach Warner about the shoes. I guess he thought I had cracked up or something." Joey let the sorrow pump out of him now, like blood from an artery. But But I saw Mike lying there. Maybe I even knew he was dead. I don't know. I had to do something for him. Somehow. Mike always felt better when he got his shoes off. That's the first thing he did when he came home. Always. He took his shoes off. And that's all I was trying to do. He sniffed and sat up straight. It was stupid, and it wouldn't have done him any good, but none of the other things they tried did him any good either, did they? I shook my head. No. I know people are laughing at me. I hate it. I hate that school. I hate that football field, and I hate that goalpost. So why don't you come to Tangerine with me? It's too late now. I'm on the split shift. So get off the split shift. Get your dad up there. They're afraid of him. Believe me, they'll do anything he says. Joey picked up his uniform and wiped his face on it. What do you mean? Why are they afraid of him? I opened my eyes with surprise. It seemed so obvious to me. Your dad is a lawyer. Your brother got killed on their property, in their care. They're afraid he'll sue them. Joey looked at me dumbly, and I realized that the Costellos weren't thinking anything of this kind. They were mourning Mike, and that was all. I said, sorry, bad idea. I'll shut up. But I could sure use some company at Tangerine. I'll bet you could. Anybody tried to kill you yet? No. Anybody mess with you at all? Nobody who's still alive. Oh yeah, right. Joey rolled up his uniform into a blue and white ball. Okay if I hop over your wall? Sure. I just don't want to walk past. He stopped and nodded toward the house. I don't blame you. How are you going to get to your house? I'll go around the guardhouse. Joey pulled himself to the top of the 6-foot wall. He sat there for a minute before he said, so, Tangerine's not that rough? I didn't say that. What about the soccer team? They got some tough guys on that. Girls, too. Tough girls? No, but they got girls, and they start. Wow, any chance I'd start? None. You'd stand next to me on the sidelines. Joey turned and looked over the wall to the other side. He said, I'll think about it. See ya. And he vaulted down into the mud of the perimeter road. Friday, September 22nd. We played our first soccer game today, an away game against Palmetto Middle School. After 7th period, Tino, Henry D, and I used the second-floor bathroom to change into our uniforms. We went out the back door to the bus lanes, where an old khaki-green bus with a noisy engine and no air conditioning was waiting. I climbed up the steps and slid into an empty seat. Henry D took the seat across the aisle. Nita and Maya sat together behind him. Victor and his boys were spread out across the back, but no one was talking. Chandra got on, and then Coach Bright, who hopped into the driver's seat. She looked in the rearview mirror and called, Count 'em up, Victor. Victor counted our heads and shouted, 16, Coach. The coach closed the bus door, threw it in gear, and pulled away. We drove east, past small farms and dead citrus groves, past forests of scrubby-looking pine trees, past a sign that said, the Turpentine Capital of the World. After 30 minutes, we reached a one-block downtown area. We rounded the corner and pulled into a school that looked very much like our own. It must have been built around the same time by the same people. We drove around back and parked in their bus lane, which was exactly like ours. They even had the same baseball diamond and the same green scoreboard. This one said, Palmetto Middle School, home of the Whippoorwills. Before she opened the bus door, the coach said, remember who you are. Remember who you represent. Victor, you lead them once around and then meet me at midfield. All right, everybody, let's look like a team. Victor and his gang piled out of the bus and took off at a fast clip toward the field. The rest of us hurried to catch up. I don't know why. Maybe they were mad about having such a wimpy nickname, but these guys turned out to be really nasty, and so did their fans. The near side of the field was lined with people watching the Palmetto players warm up. They were middle school kids, of course, but there were also many grown-ups, local people. They turned to us and started jeering as we began our lap around the field. I swear, some of them spit at us before we made it to the turn and headed toward the far side, the visitor's side. We could still hear them yelling nasty stuff behind us. I looked up at Victor. He was totally focused. He didn't seem to be listening to any of it. He led us at a sprint down the far sideline. Then we turned and cut a path through the green uniforms of the Palmetto players. They had some rude things to say to us, too, especially to the girls. We formed a circle around the coach at midfield. Now I could see Victor's eyes. They were blazing with rage, and the muscles of his face were knotted like a fist. Betty Bright extended her long arm into the circle. Each player put a hand on top of hers. I squeezed in and did the same. She yelled, Who are we? And we yelled back, War Eagles! Who are we? War Eagles! Who are we? War Eagles! Betty Bright pulled her arm back and stepped out of the circle. Victor picked up the chant, but all he was screaming was, War! 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 We all started screaming with him, blocking out the catcalls from the Whippoorwills and their fans. War! 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 in a frenzy that drove away all the fear and intimidation that I felt from our opening lap. Our circle broke up and the game began. There was only one referee, and he didn't seem like he knew too much about soccer. He seemed more like a football guy. He lost control of the game in the opening minute, and he never got it back. Of course, it wasn't really a game. It was a war. The Palmetto players got down and dirty right away, and their fans cheered them on. They tripped us, pulled our jerseys, got up in our faces, and pretended to throw punches. Their fans loved it. The longer the referee failed to blow his whistle, the bolder they got and the more bloodthirsty their fans became. I was standing on the sideline with Betty Bright and the other 4 kids who weren't playing. Directly behind us, about 20 yards away, was a line of trees. Some kids from the middle school had gathered handfuls of acorns from there. They started throwing them at us and then running back to get more. What could we do except duck? The coach said to us, "You stand here by me, all of you, and stand up straight. Don't let some fool make you bow your head." The Palmetto team had 2 big fullbacks who couldn't play soccer at all, but who wiped out anybody who got near the goal. They were tripping, throwing elbows, getting away with murder back there. I looked at my teammates, the victims of all of this, and was amazed at how calm their faces were. I was the only one who was freaking out. The rest of them had been through this before. They were acting like it was business as usual here at Palmetto Middle School, home of the Whippoorwills. So the War Eagles stayed focused and played their game. They controlled the ball. They passed to the open guy or girl. They got the ball to the people who knew how to score. Maya got off 2 excellent shots, hitting the goalpost once and just missing high with the other one. It was only a matter of time until she found the range and scored in spite of those menacing fullbacks. Victor hadn't tried a shot yet. Maybe he was too caught up with being the enforcer for our side, with insulting the Whippoorwills' defenders and threatening their lives. Underneath all this ugliness was one fact. We were the better team. We had these guys dead. We played much better soccer, and we played it like a team. Palmetto has a few individual players, but they don't work together. Our fullbacks, Dolly Elias and a big guy they call Mono, were able to clear out every ball that came close. Chandra only touched the ball once when Dolly kicked it back to her. Of course, whenever you're thinking things are as bad as they're going to get, they get worse. An afternoon storm came rumbling in. In a matter of minutes, it got cold, then it got dark. Then the rain started pouring down onto the field, turning it into mud. That was the good news for the big fullbacks from Palmetto. They could knock our players flying. Maya, Tino, Henry D., Hernando, all of them went flying through the mud at one time or another. And still, the referee's whistle remained silent. The half ended at 0-0. We all ran back to our bus to escape from the pelting of the rain. Betty Bright pulled out a brown bag and tossed everyone a tangerine. She spoke to us calmly, like she, too, had been through this before. "Maya, you find yourself a dry spot out there and stay in it. The rest of you get the ball to Maya. I want to see her take 20 shots on goal this half. Victor, they're playing you for a fool out there. Forget about all that bad boy stuff and play ball." She waited until Victor responded with a disgusted snort. She continued, but not as calmly. "There's no way this team can beat you. You can only beat yourselves, and that's all I have to say. Let's go." The coach opened the bus door. We all waited for Victor to get up and stalk to the front. He stopped on the bus steps and looked back at all of us. Then he jumped out into the rain and started running back toward the field with the rest of us right behind. Mercifully, the rain let up in the second half. A Palmetto forward upended Tino right in front of our goal. Tino fell on top of the guy and started punching at his face. Betty Bright ran out onto the field and pulled him off, his arms still punching away at the air. She dragged Tino to our sideline as the remaining Palmetto fans screamed for a foul. Suddenly, the coach was looking straight at me. "Paul Fisher, have you ever played anything but goal?" I stared at her dumbly. I hadn't played or even thought about playing anything but goal for the past 2 years, but I heard myself saying, "Yes, ma'am, I've played soccer since I was 6. I guess that was good enough because she said, "Get in there for Tino, play center forward." The referee responded to the fans. He awarded a penalty kick to Palmetto. A penalty kick is like a free throw in basketball, only better because the coach picks the player who takes it. You really should make it 100% of the time. Your best kicker gets an unobstructed shot at the goalie from just 12 yards away. Chandra got set, her heels on the goal line. She faced the kicker, the Palmetto captain. The kicker ran up and drove a low, hard shot to the left side. Chandra drove and got a piece of it, but it hit the inside of the goalpost and rolled in. The kicker threw his arms up into the air. The Palmetto players all came running up and jumped on him. They led 1-0. It took a long time for them to get back into their positions. When they finally did, one of them wiped out Henry D on the wing and then kicked the ball out of bounds. Some kids got a hold of it and kicked it even farther away into the woods. Betty Bright yelled to the referee, time's out on this play, right? The referee himself wound up getting the ball. When he got back onto the field, he yelled over, 5 minutes left to play, coach. Dolly threw the ball in to Maya, who dribbled it all the way down the right sideline. I ran as hard as I could toward the goal. The defender took off after Maya, who looped the ball over him right to me in front of the goal. I don't know what happened next. My brain got stuck somewhere between shoot it now and trap it first, then shoot it. Anyway, I swung my leg back to kick, but the ball went rolling right under me through my legs to the other Palmetto defender, who cleared it away. Victor was in my face immediately, his finger nearly stabbing through my chest. He screamed, if we lose this game, you're dead. A minute later, I got another chance to shoot the ball, but one Palmetto fullback knocked me down, and the other kicked it away. I started to get up, but before I could, the fullback stretched out my goggles from my face, scooped up a handful of mud, and smeared it in my eyes. In my eyes. I went berserk. Before he could get away, I scrambled up and jumped on his back. I brought him down and started punching at him blindly the way I had seen Tino do it. A whistle started blowing, and soon I felt the coach's big hands yanking me off him and dragging me away. I stood next to the coach for the rest of the game. Mud all over me, blood pouring out of my nose, tears pouring out of my eyes. I heard my teammates screaming, so I took off my goggles, cleaned them the best I could, and put them back on. Through the blurry plastic lenses, I watched Victor take the ball through the Palmetto defenders like a wild bull. He fought off one nasty tackle and then another. He lowered his shoulder at the fullback and crashed into him. The Palmetto goalie slid at him, but Victor was too quick. He pushed the ball to the right and vaulted over him. Then he kicked it into the open goal. It was 1-1. Our players didn't celebrate. With 1 minute left, they lined up and started again. It was an open brawl out there now between some of our guys and some of theirs, but the referee did not blow his whistle. He just wanted to get this over with. Victor called for the ball, and Chandra got it to him with a mighty heave. He fought his way out of the pack at midfield and sprinted straight for the Palmetto goal. Two defenders sandwiched him and threw him off balance, but his momentum carried him on. The fullback hit him with a forearm to the shoulder that sent him sprawling forward, sliding through the mud. Then the fullback kicked the ball back toward his own goaltender, who only had to cradle it and run out the clock. But the ball never got to him. Victor somehow scrambled to his feet in the middle of his mudslide and lunged for it, flipping it with his foot. The ball flew up in an arc as Victor and the goaltender smacked heads. The ball bounced once and went into the goal. The referee threw up his arms, signaling the goal, and shouted, "That's it! The game is over!" Victor staggered back to his feet and stood at the penalty line. The captain of the War Eagles, mud coating his entire body, blood streaming down from a cut over his eye. He held out his right fist, and we all ran to him. We put our hands on his and jumped up and down, chanting, War Eagles, and war, war, war," in a frenzy. We ran in a pack, whooping and screaming and pounding on each other until we got to the bus. I looked out the window and saw the acorn throwers had turned their attention to the referee, who was desperately trying to unlock his car. We heard some acorns hit the roof of the bus as the coach counted out. "How many heads, Victor?" Victor pulled off his shirt to tie it around his bleeding forehead. He scanned us and quickly yelled, 16, coach, and we pulled out of there, faster than the 5-mile-per-hour sign allowed. On the ride home, Victor smacked me on the back of the head and said, "Hey, Fisherman, I'm sorry I got on your case like that." "No problem, Victor. You're right. I should have had it." Yeah, shut up. I'm just saying I'm sorry. I know that playing goal is your thing. I get pumped up, you know." "Yeah, I know. You were great out there." "Sure I was, but I saw you playing hard out there too, and I saw you get a piece of that fullback." Victor paused. When he continued, he was no longer bragging. He was dead serious. "Listen, Fisherman, here it is. If you're going to play with us, then you're going to play with us. Do you understand?" I nodded. "If you're a War Eagle, then you're a War Eagle. You got brothers to back you up. Nobody's going to mess with you. Not any place. Not any time. Do you know what I'm saying?" I looked into Victor's fierce, dark eyes and nodded some more. Victor returned to the back of the bus, leaving me sitting in a kind of daze. Did I hear him? Oh yeah, I heard him all right. I heard his words clearer than any words I had ever heard before, and I do believe I know what he is saying. Friday, September 22nd, later. Joey called me after dinner and announced, "I'm coming to your school on Monday." "Whoa, what happened?" "I took your advice. I went into the office with Dad. You were right. Mrs. Gates came out all smiles, you know. She shook Dad's hand. She said, 'Tell me what I can do for you.' And what did you say?" "I didn't say anything. My lawyer did all the talking. Basically, she did whatever we said." "You said jump and she said how high?" "Exactly. She went in herself and got my folder out of the files. Dad asked her to put a note in there saying I should have all the same classes as you." "She did that?" She said she was more than happy to. Then she went to find Coach Walski to give him my uniform back. How was he? Not cool. He started telling me that I shouldn't leave, that I wouldn't be allowed to play at Tangerine Middle because I live in the Lake Windsor district. But Dad was ready for him. He cut him right off and said, "We'll see about that. Wait here." He said that? So we hustled back over to the office, right? Dad had Gates write out a letter giving me special permission to play soccer at Tangerine Middle School. All right. Then we took it back to Walski. My dad stuck it under his nose and made him sign it. Awesome. What did he say? Not a word. Not one word. Joey paused. Then he continued awkwardly. So, you think you'll be able to show me around on Monday? My mouth opened up to answer him, but I couldn't see myself leading Joey around the halls of Tangerine Middle School. That had to be somebody else's job. I said, "I'll tell you what you should do. When you get to the office, ask to see Dr. Johnson, right? Then ask her to let Teresa Cruz take you around." Joey repeated the name like he was writing it down. Teresa Cruz. Why? Is she cute or something? I hesitated. Yeah, I guess she's kind of cute, but that's not it. She's connected. At Tangerine, it's all about being connected. Joey said, but I don't think he understood. Then he said, "What about the soccer team? What are those guys like?" That was a good question. I didn't have an answer to it. Not yet. I finally said, "They're super focused on the game, on winning. It's like it's life or death for them." Joey once again repeated my words, life or death. Okay, I can handle that. I'll see you on Monday. Saturday, September 23rd. Today was the first day of football season for the Lake Windsor High Seagulls. They played a home game against the Cypress Bay High Cardinals. Dad was pretty hyper, like this was the most important day of his life or something. We got there at 1 o'clock for a 2 o'clock game, but I was glad we did. We barely managed to crowd into the home side bleachers. We sat with the other Lake Windsor fans and with the few Cypress Bay fans who remembered that half our bleachers had been condemned. I hadn't seen the bleachers since the day of the sinkhole. There they sat, a big gray erector set, now looped with yellow police ribbons that said "Do Not Cross," like a big VIP section reserved for people who were never going to show up. By 1:30, the rest of the Cypress Bay fans had gotten the message. There was nowhere for them to sit. They were milling around both end zones, trying to find open places to stand and watch the game. Mom kept saying, "This isn't right. Didn't anybody plan for this?" Finally, a group of teenagers wearing red and white Cardinals shirts decided to do something about it. They walked around to the visitors' side, ducked under the yellow ribbon, and sat down in the front row. They then gestured back to the other Cypress Bay fans like they were pantomiming. "See? We made it. It didn't collapse." Other fans started heading over there. Then, suddenly, we saw this fat guy in a gray suit go running across the field. Mom called out, "Look, that's Mr. Bridges." Sure enough, Mr. Bridges was yelling and waving at the Cypress Bay fans to go back, to get out of there, but they weren't listening. In fact, more and more red and white shirts seemed willing to take a chance on the condemned bleachers. A photographer in a Tangerine Times cap started bobbing in front of Mr. Bridges, taking pictures of him trying to turn the mob back. He finally gave up yelling and came stomping back across the grass, red-faced, like he was about to have a heart attack. It was past time to start the game, but nothing was happening on the field. Mom spotted Eric in his uniform. Light blue helmet, white pants, and light blue jersey with seagulls written across the front. He had a white number 1 on his back. Arthur Bauer was standing next to him, of course. He was wearing number 4. We continued to sit, baking in the sun, for nearly 30 minutes while nothing happened. Finally, a squadron of police cruisers appeared on Seagull Way. They had their sirens sounding and their lights flashing. Right behind them came a square white truck with a big satellite dish on the top and Channel 2 News on the side. They all pulled in behind the home bleachers while the other cops spread out. 2 big sheriff's deputies marched across the field and confronted the Cypress Bay fans. It was all over in a minute. The fans weren't there to fight. They surrendered immediately, ducking back under the ribbons and finding places to stand along the far sideline. At last, the referees and players took the field to start the game. It turned out to be a pretty sloppy game, considering that the Tangerine Times had picked both the Lake Windsor Seagulls and the Cypress Bay Cardinals as, quote, teams to watch in its preseason poll. Eric kicked off for our side, driving the ball deep into Cypress Bay's end zone. But then he stood on the sideline for the rest of the half. Neither offense could get anything going. Each side would run 3 plays and then punt the ball away. Eric was the place kicker, but Antoine Thomas, in addition to everything else, did the punting. By the end of the first half, Antoine had run for about 50 yards, but nearly all of his passes had been dropped. The Seagulls had never gotten close to the ball The Seagulls had never gotten the ball close enough for Eric to try for a field goal. The Cypress Bay offense was no better. They had a big fullback who could pick up 3 yards through the middle, but that was about it. It was 0-0 at the half. Tina, Paige, and the rest of the Lake Windsor cheerleaders, the Seagirls, took the field for a halftime dance routine. The third quarter was as dull as the first 2, but Cypress Bay's offense suddenly got it together in the final period. They drove 85 yards for a touchdown, most of those yards coming from that big fullback. They kicked for the extra point, which was good, and Cypress Bay led 7-0. Antoine responded with 2 short runs and then a beautiful 40-yard pass to Terry Donnelly, who was wide open down the left side. I could have caught that pass. My grandmother could have caught it for that matter, but Terry Donnelly dropped it. Antoine had to punt again. That's when I noticed the black clouds rolling in. The whole mess with the visitors' bleachers and Mr. Bridges and the cops had pushed the game past the 4 o'clock barrier. In a matter of minutes, we went from sunny skies to kaboom. And then down it came, a hard, cold rain. Most of the fans climbed down from the bleachers and ran for their cars. Mom yelled, "Come on, you two," but Dad said, "No, you go ahead, I'm staying." So I said, "I'm staying too." Mom was already on the ground. She yelled back, "Fine, stay. I hope neither of you gets killed." She ran back to the Volvo, leaving us to get soaked, or worse. The rain turned out to be a blessing for Lake Windsor. The offensive line started pushing Cypress Bay back, letting Antoine move the ball steadily down the field. 5 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards. With 2 minutes to play, the Seagulls were all the way down to the Cypress Bay 5-yard line. Antoine faked a run to the end and lofted a pass into the left corner of the end zone that some mud-covered Seagull receiver caught for the touchdown. A soggy cheer went up from the fans left in the bleachers. The score was 7-6, and Eric's big moment had arrived. He came running onto the field in his perfectly clean, mud-free uniform to kick the extra point that would tie the game. Eric had never missed an extra point. Never. I was expecting to see Arthur Bauer trotting out with him, but number 4 was still standing there on the sidelines with the other clean uniforms. The 2 muddy teams lined up. Eric got into his kicking stance, and Antoine Thomas crouched down in front of him holding the ball. I said, "Check it out, Dad. Antoine's the holder." "I see," he said grimly. "Eric told me that Arthur would be his holder. I don't think it's such a good idea to throw a surprise like this at your kicker." Dad and Eric and I and everybody else figured Arthur had taken over from Mike Costello's job. But no, that was Antoine, in the crouch, getting ready to spin the laces and set the ball down for Eric. The referee blew his whistle and the clock started to tick, and Lake Windsor's big center snapped the ball. Eric, his head down in total concentration, took 2 steps forward like he's rehearsed a million times. His foot started toward the ball in a powerful arc, and then the most incredible thing happened. Antoine whipped the ball away at the last second like Lucy does with Charlie Brown. He took off running down the right side and crossed the goal line untouched for a 2-point conversion. Seagulls led 8-7. At the same moment, Eric, who clearly did not expect Antoine to pull the ball away, kicked at nothing but the air. His left foot went flying off in one direction, his right foot in another. For a split second, he was parallel to the 3 feet above the ground. Then he made a perfect banana peel backflip, landing in the mud. The people around us started laughing, hooting, and cheering all at the same time. Antoine spiked the ball in the end zone, and all the Lake Windsor players, except Eric, ran over and jumped on him. All the Lake Windsor players on the sideline, except Arthur, started jumping up and down too. Eric finally got up and walked to the sideline to get his kicking tee. His front was still clean and white, but his back was now filthy. He kicked the ball back to the Cardinals, but they fumbled it away, and that's how it ended. Lake Windsor 8, Cypress Bay 7. When we got back to the car, Mom just said, "From here, it sounded like we won." I wanted to tell her all about Eric's banana peel backflop special, but Dad cut in right away. "Yes, we won on a fake kick. They sent Eric out to fake the kick for the extra point. That drew the offense to him, and it cleared the way for Antoine to run it in for 2 points." Mom thought for a moment. "So Eric did something that helped to win the game?" "Most definitely," Dad said. "It's not something that shows up in the stats in the newspaper. It's not something people will remember, but it helped win the game." I thought to myself, "Not remember? You gotta be kidding. Eric's flying banana peel black flap in the mud is the one thing about this game that everybody is going to remember." Dad continued talking in this manner throughout dinner, pounding home his theme to Eric. That Eric had contributed big time to the victory. That Eric had actually made the victory possible by being the decoy. I don't think Eric was even listening. He was just sitting there looking down, twisting his varsity ring around and around on his finger. After dinner, Dad flipped on the TV so we could all watch the local news. The lead story on Channel 2 was the revolt of the Cypress Bay fans and their brief takeover of the condemned visitors' bleachers. About 2/3 of the way through the broadcast came the Saturday Sports Roundup. The sports anchorman went through the professional baseball and football stuff, then the college football scores, and then the high school scores. Lake Windsor 8, Cypress Bay 7. The broadcast ended with a feature called This Week in Sports. It was a collection of sports bloopers, and guess who they saved for last? The anchorman said something like, "Finally, a play that looks like it was drawn up by the Three Stooges. Watch closely." And there it was, a ground-level view of the ball being snapped to Antoine, of Eric striding forward confidently, and whoo! Up in the air he flew. It was even more comical than I had remembered. Eric went splashing down into the mud, but he didn't stay there. They rewound the tape so that he popped back up, flopped again, popped back up, and flopped again. Finally, the camera turned toward the end zone to catch Antoine spiking the ball. It zoomed in on his face. Antoine was laughing and pointing his finger at the big center, who was pointing back at him. When the anchorman came back on, he was cracking up. So were all the other news people. The credits started rolling, and they started saying stuff like, "Does that school have a diving team?" And "I hear those mud baths are good for wrinkles." Dad got up and snapped off the TV. The four of us sat there in stony silence. I was thinking that if we were at somebody else's house, we'd all be rolling on the floor and laughing at this. I was thinking that kids all over Florida were rolling on the floor and laughing at this. At Eric Fisher, the flying place kicker. But this isn't somebody else's house. This is the house built on the Eric Fisher football dream. Finally, Dad said to Eric, "Hey, all you can do is laugh it off." Mom agreed. "That's right. You just leave it behind you. That's all you can do. You leave it behind you and it's over with." The four of us got up and went our separate ways, me up to my room. I stared out my window at the back wall. "Forget it, Dad. Forget it, Mom. Eric can't laugh this off. Eric can't leave this humiliation behind him. Someone has to pay for this. I'm not sure why, I'm sure, but I am. Someone has to pay for this."